You good? All right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Sports Medicine Broadcast number 219, Critical Incident Stress Management Team, or CISM. So this episode will be sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/CISM. Our guest this week is Perry Dennehy from Tri Health Orthopedics. He's a retired fire captain in the city of Mason, Ohio, and he's got 33 years in the profession. We should also be joined by Keith Owsley as soon as he gets logged in here, and then Bubba Wilson should be joining us as well. I'm your host, Jeremy Jackson. With me today, I've got
Ariana,
Joshua,
Daniela, and Juanita.
There we go. Again, this one will be sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/CISM for critical incident stress management. So just a kind of an intro to this here. About a year ago, it was May 1st, we got called out onto the field. There was a kid down, or Bill got called out. Then he called me and said, hey, bring the AED. We performed CPR and used the AED, and the kid eventually ended up not surviving. So after they took him to the hospital, about an hour or so later, they said, he's gone. So that's the story in short. Again, I've talked about it in one of the other podcasts. I know in number 190, we talked about it. And so if you want to go back and check that out, you can. But that's kind of my story. And then it's the aftermath that still is sometimes difficult. Even now, I have to kind of take a second to stop and I guess gather myself as I talk about this. So that's why this subject is important to me, and that's why we're going to continue to talk about it and see if we can move forward to improve the way that it was handled. So Perry, why don't you give us a quick introduction of yourself?
Okay. Sorry, cut off there. Hear myself talking. I have been an athletic trainer for 33 years, and fortunately in my small town of Mason, Ohio, they had a volunteer fire department, and I always looked up to those folks. So on my 18th birthday or soon thereafter, I went ahead and joined the fire department life squad. I was able to get my training. I ran during my college years at Miami of Ohio. And once I graduated, fortunately, I was able to get a job at a nearby high school, not Mason, but about 2 miles away. And now, I did that for 20 years. So I was an athletic trainer by day and firefighter by night, weekends, holidays. I really enjoyed it. And when I decided I needed to kind of step down from the fire service, I knew there was a group in Cincinnati called the CISM team, Southwest Ohio CISM. And I felt that would be a good opportunity for me to kind of stay connected with the fire service, even though I wasn't going to be making emergency calls. And that was in the year 2000. So when I was taking the training sessions required to join the CISM team, I quickly thought how apparent or how useful this type of group would be for athletic trainers. And so a few years later, we were able to start the Ohio Athletic Trainers Association CISM team. And that has grown to now also include the states of Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin, and New Jersey. Currently are the only 5 athletic training CISM teams in the nation.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about the CIS team. What does it consist of? And then we'll go from there.
Okay. We mimicked what was already in position for several years for the area police departments and fire departments. So CISM among the fire and service, paramedic, police agencies is fairly common. But again, it's new to athletic training. So we did it very similar. We have peers, which is the main component of the CISM team. With the theory being that you're going to be more comfortable talking to someone in the same profession who literally walks the walk, talks the talk. As long as you know they're not there to critique your performance, but they're there to listen. Keep it confidential, which again is a hallmark of our CISM team, that typically what is said in those sessions are kept there and not, publicized, and that we're readily available. Unfortunately, right now in America, with mental health and mental health providers, sometimes it's very difficult to get in to see anyone quickly. And so what we hope to provide is initial psychological first aid and support, of which, long-term referral or professional assistance might be required, and it's encouraged if need be. But what we want to do is sort of, literally wrap our arms around these folks who are hurting and who might be second guessing themselves, might be feeling guilty, and maybe just have a feeling of no one really understands what I'm going through. And we hope to bridge that gap.
All right, that's a great, I don't know, a great plan, because again, I talked about it in my previous episodes, and the thing that I felt was most lacking was support for me. Again, I just happened to be in the gym the day that they were talking to the kids about what happened and saying, "Hey, we're here for you." I just happened to be there. If I hadn't been there, then there wouldn't have been anybody there for me. I received a good bit of phone calls and emails and texts and messages, all that kind of thing, from other athletic trainers, especially ones that have been through that situation. But I feel like that was it. Like, they were there. They said, "Hey, if you need something, let me know." And then it was kind of like, okay. And then, but other than those other athletic trainers, there wasn't much there. So talk to me a little bit more about how it's set up to wrap your arms around those people, how it's set up to provide that initial psychological first aid and support.
Okay. Now, could you repeat the question? I think I missed a couple of the words there.
How is the critical incident stress management team set up to provide that initial psychological first aid and support?
All right. Well, here in Ohio, which again, I'm going to sort of answer it specific to what we have going on in OATA. Some of the states have made slight variations to it, but number one, you need to select the individuals who would best serve in this role, and not everyone, honestly, would be a good peer counselor. But let's say we've selected some folks who are interested. They want to take the training. They have been able to take the 2-day training, and we put them on our team. Hopefully we have some more experienced peers as well as some new ones. So if a team is needed, we'll try to mix some of the newers with the older, more experienced folks. We travel to wherever the folks need us. That can be, a few hours drive. It might mean, I'm going to not be at school today, and my assistant can take over because someone needs me right now. And the agreement that fortunately we have is that most school districts or healthcare providers, clinics, we understand, we're going to go ahead and let you miss work today because it may be in the future that we're going to call upon this team to help our folks. So there's that agreement that really has provided a lot of support. There's several opportunities or several varieties, but most of the interventions that we do would be known as a one-on-one, where one peer is talking to the affected one-on-one conversation. And, rather informal. It can be anywhere that they're comfortable with. Hopefully it's private and, without any interruptions. Another variety of that could be a group intervention where perhaps the athletic training staff was larger or there were more folks involved in the situation. And so we can sort of build it where you're going to have multiple folks speaking on because they were all affected by that event. And we've done some larger campus-wide where an entire athletic training undergraduate program who lost their program director in an auto accident. So we sort of ramp up our team based on the number of participants that we're going to have in the intervention. And then typically we'll do a follow-up where we check in a few days later. But at that point, we don't take on any long-term treatment. We would make a referral. We would suggest that under the circumstances, it would be best for everyone, including that individual who wants to get back to athletic training, who wants to, feel like they're doing better, that it may be that we make that recommendation for a referral. And that's not a sign of weakness on either side. It's just an indication that, the proper medical person needs to be involved. And I would say most athletic trainers do have an employee assistance program that might be available to them through their employer. They might use a chaplain or a pastor or any other mental health provider in their community. So probably just to distinguish that we are not, setting ourselves up to be a long-term healthcare provider.
Okay, so I had a question from Katmar in the chat room. Where can someone find out more about the 2-day training you were talking about?
Our team, you can go to the website for OATA, so www.oata.org. The overall CISM credentialing agency is www.icisf.org, the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation.org, ICISF. And that's who we are all credentialed with. That's where the firefighters, the police officers, the nurses, the chaplains, the mental health professionals, and the athletic trainers, we're all credentialed as ICISF peer counselors. And that's based out of Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, so if someone wants to go to ICSF.org, they could sign up to take the 2-day course?
Well, that's where they're going to be listed. If they're, again, no matter what the branch or what the career, it could be a firefighter. If you're talking specific to athletic training, then if they're currently practicing in one of the states that I mentioned, New Jersey, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, or Ohio, there is a CISM team already established for athletic trainers. If you're in one of the other 45 states, I guess this might be as good a time as any to mention that we are getting very strong indications from the NATA, the National Athletic Trainers Association, that this will be a very high priority among the regional and state CISM teams throughout the country. And the earliest that is going to be officially announced is going to be June, hopefully in June, at the NATA conference.
All right. So Bubba Wilson just joined us again. He's real interested in this topic. He's going to be helping me. He's kind of been here with me throughout the walk.
Great.
So Juanita, can you switch to that? Yeah, Juanita switch to Bubba so that Perry can say hello to Bubba. But as we're doing that,
we've emailed.
You've emailed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Hi, Bubba.
How are you? Hey, I got
late. Texas name?
What's that?
Is that a Texas name?
Southern, yes.
Southern, okay.
Yeah. I got in late. I had a staff meeting, and then Houston traffic is phenomenal no matter what time of day. But, we talk about this being catastrophic and providing help. But as I was driving over, I've actually been thinking about this for the last couple of days. What about that person that provides or those individuals that provide the care and the help, and the outcome is good? Is this available for them too? Even though they may be struggling from the whole stress of it, even though the outcome again went well, is there help for them in this?
Absolutely. There's really no restrictions for when an individual would benefit. Some of the models that are taught in the training, this session's probably not going to be able to fully explain it, but there's a method of dealing with stress management or listening skills that, we'd like to say that this type of education or training, you could benefit in the classroom, you could benefit in your personal life. When neighbors have difficulties, it's really a way to mitigate and minimize the negative effect that stress has on us, and often be positives that we're faced with. So yeah, it does not have to be the catastrophic event. Sometimes it's accumulative. There's
Right.
just been a lot of smaller things that have built up that have caused distress. No one single event.
And and I don't know what y'all set of questions is. So I'm just going to throw this one out there. Jeremy and I have talked about this, quite a bit. I think that this is way overdue from a national level, but to me, it's a public safety issue. If I go through something like this, and let's say the outcome is not positive, and 2 weeks later I'm in my athletic training room and I'm needed again, how do we know that I can function effectively, that I'm not going to all of a sudden freeze? To me, it's like an officer involved shooting. You need to go get some level of therapeutic care, so to speak, or an evaluation to make sure I can go back and safely and effectively do my job again.
I would agree. We don't typically, file a report, or we keep it confidential between the person requesting the assistance. That's probably a pretty tight line that I think my strategy would be to honestly ask the individual, do you want to go back to work? Do you feel like you're capable? Do you have any reservations? What do you need to further build your confidence? And, perhaps during our conversation, we could say that it does sound like perhaps it's a little too early, and hopefully your employer is helping you with that.
Right. And I think though that ought to be not an employer mandate, so to speak, but something that your employee assistance program or psychologist within your school district or somebody has already said, we need to do this, to just talk to them and make sure they feel like they can go back to work. Because what typically happens is something like this goes on. They bring in people to talk to the students. Nobody's brought in to talk to the caregivers in our situation of athletic training. And what are we all going to say, at least outwardly? I'm fine. And you may not be.
Yes.
So Perry, on that same note there, what would it look like for if here in Texas we had the critical incident stress management team, or if, say, I'm working in Ohio, I have that kid die, and then what is the next step there from the CISM? What does that look like?
All right. Again, your question was a little jumbled. Could you ask it one more time?
All right. So if I was in Ohio and had that same situation, a kid dies, we do CPR, use the AED, a kid ends up not making it. So what does it look like from that point forward with the CISM?
What's the process?
Yeah. What's the process?
Okay. Well, if you, obviously you at that point would have your mind just going in thousands of directions with stress and probably even having trouble driving. So it is quite possible that you yourself have forgotten that we had this team available, and you may or may not have made the initial call. But typically our process has been someone has heard about the event that took place at your school, and they're calling us to say, hey, as a heads up, you may want to reach out to Jeremy because he's had a bad situation. And at that point, we would try to get a hold of you and indicate we're available if you need us. Would you like us to come help? Would you like us to check in 24 hours? Do you want us to, meet you at halftime? And so we customize the response on your needs at that point. Again, if we can get to you in 15 minutes, we'll do it. If unfortunately there's just no way we can get there that quickly, we might say that we'll be there at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, or we'll be there, at some agreed upon time. But we will try to get, and honestly, a face-to-face communication is much better than a phone call. So we might start with a phone call, but we certainly would like to be there in person with you as soon as possible.
Okay, and then so the situation here, there's 2 of us athletic trainers. There was a school nurse, and then 2 police officers. I think all of us were performing CPR. We weren't the only people involved. You know, there was also the coaches and that kind of thing. So what would that be normally just you coming out as one, or if there was, say, three or 4 of us at this one building, would you bring one for each person? What does that look like?
That first person would arrive and do an assessment. You know, what is happening? What is the demeanor of these folks? How big is the group? How many people have been affected? You know, is it a crime scene? Is it a, you know, weather phenomenon? Is it safe to be there? Have these people been, you know, evacuated, left the area? And that initial conversation, but let's make it so that the groups that responded, the folks who took part, are available, they're safe, they're in a private area where we can talk with them. We'll provide this first interventional level known as a diffusing. And the diffusing is a much shorter opportunity for folks to just get grounded somewhat, to let them know that this event is going to have some effect on them, to reassure them that they're going to have assistance, that, you know, we want to listen to what happened, but not make any judgments, tell them not to, you know, think the worst, or and basically look at their immediate needs, just like Maslow hierarchy of needs. Do they need food? Do they need sleep? Do they need a place to stay? And basically what situation are these people going to be in for the next 24 hours? Do they need events covered? Do they need to go home with their families? Do they need some other conference athletic trainers come in and take over for the next couple days, just so that they can feel support? The next level is called a debriefing, and this is typically 2 to 3 days later, when everyone has processed through the situation. Perhaps, unfortunately, there's been a funeral. There might be probably some media exposure to the event. They've had neighbors asking them questions. They've had coworkers, and at that point, they might also be noticing some symptoms that maybe didn't manifest themselves initially, but, you know, patterns of sleep disruption. Perhaps they're not eating. They have a headache. The other physical manifestation to talk about. And they want to mention that, you know, I have dreams, I have nightmares, I can't get it out of my head. That we don't want to get there too soon and discuss things with them and then go away, because for the reasons that I just indicated, sometimes these responses are delayed. Also, as an athletic trainer, we're fix-it people. We want to be in charge. We feel like our first priority is to help everyone else. And you hold on to that role, you just become fatigued and overwhelmed and realize that, you know, I'm not Superman here. I'm vulnerable and I need help. And, hopefully they're asking for help.
Okay. So we've talked, I think we got a pretty good understanding of what the CISM is and what it looks like. So here, I know that the NATA is working on something, right? I received that survey and said, if we were to do this, would you be interested? And I said, yes, because I've been through the situation. I want to be able to help. Kat Meyer, again, just, you know, she said,
Great.
I would love to be able to have this for GHATs. And so how can we get that rolling here so that it's not just those 5 states that you talk to? What are some good steps for us to start locally in our district and then grow from there?
Well, I would have you look at the ICISF website, and I'm not sure which portion of it. They do list every established CISM team in the country, actually in the world. So and it's broken down state by state. So it might quite possibly be that there is a active CISM team in your community, but it is currently connected to the fire department or the police department. And my suggestion, and I do get those phone calls, is that, you know, let's say like your example at your school, there might have been a debriefing that was held for the first responders, the paramedics, the fire department, they just didn't think to include an athletic trainer. Just like oftentimes they don't include the dispatchers, or they don't include, the school folks. So, we want to, minimize that. So that would be one suggestion, that you may already have a CISM team in your community that perhaps you could take some training with them. You could become familiar with them, because as we just indicated, this would be a multi-jurisdictional response. It may be more than just the athletic trainer, and would further your relationship with your local EMS and fire personnel. My answer to, when will athletic training teams make it to your state? I don't know if you took part in a survey that the NATA sent out, but there was an overwhelming desire across the country to have these teams formed. There was also higher than expected examples of athletic trainers who have already, made it through an event. That the number of that information in front of me was much higher than expected. And then fortunately, there was also the opportunity for folks to say, are you interested in joining a team like this? And there were over 400 certified athletic trainers that want to be a part of these teams once they get organized. So I guess I'm going to say, be somewhat patient. And I think we're going to see this move. We also want to do it the right way. We want to provide the right training, get the right folks involved, and but it's certainly going to be at a higher level than it's ever been before. And it's so we're just now seeing it coming into fruition.
I know I gave a talk about this in January, and just kind of a cursory, here's what I'm thinking, guys, and to about 50 people. And everybody was like, it's that head slap moment. Why haven't we thought about some of this stuff earlier? Which led then, I'm going to give the same talk at our District 6 meeting this summer. And I think there is a lot of desire to not only have this, but to be involved. And I've done a little research into, I think, Jeremy, our biggest group that teaches it, like the main group is out of San Marcos. But they have regional spinoff groups that do some education. I think we'd have to get with them and get a little more maybe education to them as to what we do and what our role is for them to understand. But this is long overdue, but it's something, as I talk about in my presentation, we don't plan for the bad. We only plan for the good outcome. And I can't say we're doing a disservice, but I think we figured out we've got to plan for the bad now.
Another component of a CISM organization or service is what is known as pre-event education, and the opportunities. What we'll see with that is trained athletic trainers going out into undergraduate programs and talking to the future athletic trainers as to possibly events that you could be faced with and what to do under those circumstances. Also, just to educate the older athletic trainers who are out there that this service is available and why it's a good idea to take part in it. And so there'll be activity like your presentations even before the bad events happen to keep people active and involved.
All right. So you said that you miss work sometimes due to going off to be part of this team. How is that received in some of the high schools? So me full-time at the high school, how is that received by, say, the principal, by the admin, by the coaches? Because I may be missing some of my responsibility here to go and help take care of someone else.
Well, I think among athletic trainers, when are we available? When are we free? And it probably will be that we won't have our debriefing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because we're all tied up with stuff. It might be that we'll schedule an 8 o'clock debriefing. And, after the practices and games are finished, then we'll 2 or 3 of us in a training room or in a library. It may, you know, when I mention I leave, it might be because I'm leaving to do the initial assessment, but we would try to encourage the person needing help that if they could schedule the debriefing available for team members. If I'm not available, then I tell folks, hey, I can't make it, and hopefully someone else can, you know, the slack, or not the slack, but pick up the coverage. I think another beauty of an NATA wide is that we won't be limited to just Ohio. That, you know, Ohio is close to Indiana and Kentucky. So we could have a blend of state responses just again based on geography, and it won't matter truly what state you're from, that it would be more of a regional response. And if you're able to get there faster than someone else, then that's who we want to utilize.
All right, sorry, we were transition.
Okay,
There.
howdy.
So, my kids left. Okay. All right. I don't know if you got a chance to look up our after action recommendation plan, but I know you guys also sent me a whole file of stuff. I think Key sent most of it. And he's, again, in our brief conversation earlier, he was giving you props for all the work that you've done. Basically, they've copied everything that you've done to put this in place. And so, besides looking at the link that I have in the show notes and once this episode is posted, where's the best place for someone to look to find these documents?
You know what? Yeah, your questions were really garbled there. I think I got where can people go for more information? And I'm going to have to say, sure what's on the Wisconsin athletic trainer website or the Illinois or the Indiana. Those folks have done a great job. They're a few years behind Ohio on the startup times of their teams, but I would say for an individual to really get an opportunity to see what all is offered in the world of CISM, I would go to www.ei.org, and that you're going to be able to see articles and how to build a team. And it's not specific to athletic training, but I'm going to tell you, hopefully by June, and shortly after June, you're going to see this being modeled for athletic training programs throughout the country.
All right, can you repeat that website? I think the
yes.
Google Hangouts was given us
www.icisf.org.
Critical incident stress something. What did you say earlier?
Foundation.
Okay. Yes. Is it International Critical Stress Incident?
International Critical Incident Stress Foundation.
There we go. I don't know why it's so hard to think through those letters and what they mean on there.
Yeah. I think you try to throw in CISM in there.
So yeah, maybe. So. All right. So for now, as we're looking at this paperwork, we're kind of waiting for NATA to roll out the AT Cares program whenever it comes out with all the details. Where, in your expert opinion, because you are the expert from what I hear, where is the best place to start for me? Because I really want it to be something at my school district level that they have a policy, right? So they say, okay, if something like this happens, then we need to make provisions so that somebody else at another high school, another whatever, is in the same situation. In your opinion, where's the best place to start to implement that policy for dealing with in a catastrophic event?
Well, we had a conference call yesterday, and some other folks are being appointed or being contacted to take part in this process. And when I mentioned names like Ron Corson at the University of Georgia, who's very well known on emergency action planning and preparations. When I mentioned Dr. Bobby Barton, who was and still at Eastern Kentucky University, but was an undergraduate or a grad student at Marshall University during the Marshall plane crash, that those are the type of experts and professionals that are going to be helping build this program literally from scratch. And so I'm confident that you're going to see this done correctly. But if you would, Ron Corson has written tons of articles and journals on emergency action planning. And I would use some of his templates. The Corey Stringer Foundation, I know, also has several samples of emergency action plans. And it may be that if they don't mention CISM, I'll say here in our school district, our plan or our procedures for the use of an AED on the actual application and policy, the last statement on it is, if this unit is involved or utilized, you should consider a CISM debriefing. It's just a reminder that, oh yeah, among the nervousness and excitement, and we're reviewing what took place, let's look at our own, should be having a debriefing because, someone had needed to use this AED in the district, and we need to, check in and see if they would benefit from such a, process. So you're right. It does need to be a policy. It needs to be written in, and it wouldn't take, but again, you need to know that there is that resource available. So you might be limited at the moment because, unless you find in your own community that, yes, there's an active CISM team. I've contacted them and they fully understand and are willing to come out to our school should we need them.
Right, because I contacted the EMS company, and the guy, I work with him pretty well, and he was like, if you guys need me to come out and talk, I can. I don't know because I wasn't looking for a CIS team because, like Bubba said earlier, we're not planning for the bad events. Yeah. And so when you said, we need to have that policy in place, again, what is your thoughts, your opinion on where is the best place to have that? Is at the campus level, at the district level, to make sure that it's used? Because we have a lot of policies.
Well, yes, it is not, and my father was a high school guidance counselor, so I'm speaking with knowledge. Oftentimes in schools, when a bad event happened, they do mention that grief counselors, and I know that those guidance counselors are doing their best, but I know, again, from my father's experience, his preparations and academic didn't really necessarily prepare him to be a grief counselor. So hopefully, they are available. They're doing their best. And I would ask the questions, do you feel comfortable with the potential role of not only taking care of the students, but, what is in position to assist with the providers and the faculty? It also, keep in mind that the counselors in your building are going to be affected from that event, maybe to the point not in a assistance to someone else, because actually they've been so impacted they need help themselves. So that's why a more regional approach should be that perhaps counselors from other buildings or other nearby districts need to be coming into your building, because everyone in your building has been impacted from the event, and it may not be in the best position to take on the role of other people's feelings because they're still.
Hey, Jeremy, I think we could
I see you with bells ringing.
I think
you
we
go.
could look at this two ways for you guys. The first being, I think you could get with the 11 or all 11 of you together and say, is this something that we feel like we need implemented within our district? And I think the answer will be overwhelmingly 11-0, yes. And then look at what we've talked about in the past. But I think we can also, is Kat Marsh still on? Because I'm fixing to, Kat, I'm making a decision for you here. We can also then send out a quasi survey to GHATS members and say, is a CISM team something that you think is beneficial and you would be interested in having and or serving on? And I think if we get enough feedback in the positive, which I believe we will, we could potentially, you and I, work on hosting that somewhere that we can get people. I could have moved. We could get people then trained to work on that. And I don't think our GHATS president would argue with what I'm saying right now. If she does, she can text me. Again, it's my opinion, and I think Jeremy would agree. This is something that should have been thought about a long time ago and is way overdue. And for those of you that have already implemented it, God bless you for being way ahead of the curve.
Thank you. I'm just going to offer this. If you want to contact me after the phone call and you need an instructor, and you know, that's down the road here a little bit, but I would be more than happy and honored to come out and teach the course for you. If that solves solves that part, once you kind of get your group of individuals organized, and typically we go out to somebody's campus that can give us a meeting room for free and a couple, baloney's a 2 8-hour day, but it would get things moving in your local area.
Okay, so while we're on that, if somebody wants to contact you that's listening to this, what's going to be the best way to do that?
Contact me on my email, my private email, perrydenehay@gmail.com. PERRYDENEHY@gmail.com. No space. My phone number, area code 513-444-9882.
All right, so that's the best way to go ahead.
Yeah, either one, email or phone call.
All right, so that'll be the best way to get a hold of Perry if you want to have somebody come out. Again, and as he stated earlier, we want to make sure that you check locally to see if there is someone in your area that can do the training, and then that'll be the easiest because they'll already be there. But for the most part, it was only those 5 states that have an athletic training specific CISM, which is modeled after the police and the fire station model for dealing with that. And then also you said the policy, Bubba's saying, start here with the 11 of us in our district and saying, hey, is this something we want to do? Well, then let's all work together to put that into a policy. Perry said one of the best ways to do that is by having policy that says anytime CPR or AED is used, then we need to bring in a CISM team member to do a diffusion and debriefing and go from there to assess the needs of the athletic trainers. Is that kind of?
Yes.
I think that's.
I would say.
Go ahead.
That's going to be your critical needs, and I just what can I say? It might also be that there could be a CISM school team that have been trained under the ICISF somewhere in your local vicinity. I just, maybe by going on the ICISF website and looking at the state, the teams that are currently available in states, you may find a local school district there or college campus that I'm just not aware of, but there might already be a team somewhat organized that you can sort of latch onto early on before you sort of branch off on your own. But again, I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, I think Jeremy and I we'll look into seeing what's available locally. But Jeremy, the angle of if CPR or AED is used and bringing this in is what we've talked about, but from a different angle as well. You know, we've talked about, again, requiring some type of diffusion / therapy session to make sure you're okay. And I think maybe you also write it in to say if CPR AD is utilized, you need to do it. But also if another catastrophic event, because let's face it, paralysis, loss of limb, that's catastrophic as well. So it shouldn't just be AED use or CPR use in there either.
Thoughts on that, Perry?
When do you guys have your state meeting or regional, district meeting? Other
July.
than, that I know the NATA's Baltimore in June, but do you happen to have a state meeting or district meeting coming up?
Our District 6 meeting is in July.
Well, would you like to have a speaker come out and talk about CISM?
I'll ask. I'm giving a talk that's going to deal with part of that there. They may be full, but I will contact them and ask.
Okay. All right. That's really how we got the word out here in District 4, GLADA, was some state meetings and GLADA presentations, also District 9. So just as a offering that might further get the word out there to you.
Another thing that is possible is we have a huge student athletic trainer workshop every January. And there's the chance of maybe getting you down or somebody down that could talk about this in front of all our licensed certified members at our business meeting that we have, and just give a little brief presentation or give you a booth or something there to talk. You catch close to 200 athletic trainers, professionals at that too. That might be a start.
Great. And let me just throw this out as for further training. The Ohio Athletic Trainers meeting is typically in early May. The night before the state meeting, the CISM team gets together and all those folks are invited to have like a 3-hour training session. So we, kind of practice, stay current, introduce new members. It's not the 2-day training, but it's a way that we can, keep people sharp and familiar with the techniques, definitely picked up by the other states, because you don't want to just take this training and then, kind of let it sit there. I think what you're going to hear with the NATA is to offer the 2-day courses at the district meetings, that you would sign up as a pre-event workshop or pre-event seminar. And, might be, again, that you don't have to be a member of District 9, but that date fits as long as you can get there, that you can go ahead and get training at various district meetings as far as the 2-day courses.
Okay.
I think this is something over the next 6 months to a year we can pull off, Jeremy. We can have a teams in place and training in place within, say, mid-June next year. We can have it. Several, not just one.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of talking about this is the third time I've kind of talked about this same topic or a similar topic, is so that other people don't have to be in the same situation I was. And so, right. That's good. Let's move forward. Perry, I'm going to run through some of these again. I talked about it again in episode 190, but I just want to hear your thoughts. What we would like, what Bubba and I kind of discussed, what we like to have in our catastrophic death or catastrophic after action plan would be, they would be scheduled an immediate debriefing, and that's exactly what you said, the diffusion period. The district should require each person involved to attend a mandatory counseling session at least once, so that they can't just continue to hide it and say, I'm fine. It just at least one session. I mean, that counseling session could be with you as a CISM team member, but at least one session. And then it should allow the involved individual to take at least 3 out of the next 6 days completely off of work without those counting against their pay or off days. So what are your thoughts there on that one?
Well, as far as time off, let me unfortunately give you a scenario that I was involved in this weekend, where a Cincinnati firefighter on his way to work at the firehouse, riding a motorcycle. A car went left to center and struck this young man head on, and he was killed. And when we arrived at the firehouse to give a defusing, everyone who was scheduled to the work that day wanted to keep working. They thought that the best place for them to be was going to be there at the firehouse with their coworkers. One gentleman specifically said that, I don't have anyone at home to go home to. I'm divorced. I don't have the kids this weekend, and it would be better off for me if I stayed here with my friends, my second family, than for me to go home and sit at an empty house. So
Right.
I would be a little careful as far as mandating time off, because for some folks, staying at work is what they need and what they want. And again, it's not saying that you're not tough enough if you can't go right back to work, but I'm just saying for some individuals,
It's therapeutic.
staying at work might be the better option for them. Yes, therapeutic.
Yeah, we had actually written allowed the
Right.
individual, not forced, but
Okay.
allowed. So
Yeah.
The main point being, because I'm with you, I think some people need to say, no, I want to work. Again, like I said earlier, I think the one point is, can I function if called upon to do this again immediately? And number two, if you need that time off, allowing it to happen without penalty. Again, this is a public safety issue. And I need to be able, just like those firemen and those EMS and those ER doctors or police officers or whomever, when called upon again, can I function and be a benefit and not a detriment?
Yes. Yes.
So the next thing I have on the list, district sets gradually increasing intervals to meet or contact the individual or involved parties to check in. Do you guys have some sort of schedule check-in instead of just saying, hey, contact me if you need anything? Do you say, okay, I'm going to contact you in 1 week and see how you're doing. Then I'm going to contact you 2 weeks from that, and then a month from that. Do y'all have anything like that set up?
Well, in the fire service, again, I know we're not talking to firemen, but they typically work 24, then they're off 48 hours. So we get that luxury of calling them every third day. But in the athletic training world, where we're working 6 days a week or 7 days a week, I can't say that there's a set policy. I would just indicate that, once a week, that would be my suggestion. Let's check in every week. I don't know if it'd be Monday or Friday, but that would be set up ahead of time. When do you want me to call you? When's the best time to call you? Do you want me to check in at home or at work? That type of thing. So, based on the need, I would be a little flexible with that also.
Right. And I think the point there is to not come by the day after and say, how you doing? And I go, I'm fine. And you forget about me in a month from now, I'm not fine. And nobody stopped in to say, okay, how you doing again?
Exactly. We had an athletic trainer involved in a very serious national event. And, when folks heard that he was at that event, people asked him about the event and really upsetting to him, because at no point did his friends and colleagues really ask him the question, how are you doing?
Right.
And once somebody finally asked that, he was able to tell the real story that he wanted to tell, not just simply all the gruesome stuff that he had witnessed that people were interested in, sure. But so just hearing him tell me that was such a reinforcement to me, myself, to ask the basic question, how are you doing? And it would be very surprising, because we know as athletic trainers, all these kids that come into the room very rarely ask, hey, how are you doing today, Mr. Dennehy? But we sure hear what's wrong in their lives. So it would be a refreshing adjustment or change to actually have somebody come in and ask us, how are we doing today?
Yeah, if they ask you that, they don't really mean it, at least from the kid's
Yeah.
standpoint.
They want something.
They're buttering you up they've got an ulterior motive. Oh man, it's been 10 years ago now, I guess, through our Greater Houston Athletic Trainer Society, when I was the president, we did something about, a catastrophic event as a roundtable. And I just wanted to know, how the administration was towards the athletic trainer after the event. And I kick myself now because a lot of what we're talking about now, we talked about then, but we never thought to implement like this CISM or a version of. Again, we just planned to go, okay, it's all going to go well. We've got our emergency action plan in place. And when we use CPR, it's just going to work. And it's interesting to see how, and this is some of what, with Jeremy and his coworker, Bill, that they went through is now it's like, we need to fix this. We've got to have a plan in place post EAP. It needs to be part of the EAP. What happens when we do this? How do we handle it? I think anytime, you talk about anytime you use the AED to think about a CISM, diffusing. Well, we also, every time we call 911, we should have a debrief. Now that debrief may be Jeremy and I working together and go, well, that went just like it should have, and it was all good, versus we had some issues and we really need to sit down and fix this. I think we lost him.
Perry, are you still there? All right. So we may have lost Perry. So I know Cat Mars pretty excited there in the chat room, wanting to get this thing going.
I'll call you after. Mar, don't worry.
Again, episode 190 is where Bub and I kind of discuss our plan in detail. I went over how I felt. Again, this really is all from, or I would say most of it from my perspective of how I felt right after when we did an episode. I don't know if it was 135 or whatever number it was, 185. How I felt right afterwards, and then when it was about 6 months, 3 months, something like that. Was it how far long was it? I don't know. It was months afterwards how I felt we did what we needed to improve, what we needed to do.
Well, we did one early right after.
Right. That was like the week after, yeah.
A week or two after. And then it was, I guess, this fall.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was several months after. And so again, it's my perspective how I felt. Okay. So other people might have been doing things that I didn't see, but it, all honesty, doesn't matter. If it's about me, the healthcare giver, how I see, feel, and perceive it, then that's really who we're trying to take care of, is you, the athletic trainer. So as Bubba and I and Cat Mar, and then obviously we'll get Perry involved there because he really is an expert in this. We will continue to grow this and make athletic training better for athletic trainers. So making it, just improving the way we take care of each other. So I'm excited about the program AT Cares. It's going to be coming out, and we're going to have a way to help take care of each other. So the last thing I had on the list, Perry won't be able to go over it here because I don't know, I guess we lost him, was that you have an after action debriefing. So, and I think that's what Bubba was saying, is after every time you call 911, or after every time, you whatever you set as your standard, after every time this happens, you have some sort of, hey, how you doing? What do we do to do it better? That kind of thing. So that's what we have as part of our recommendations for our after action plan in the show notes, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/CISM for critical incident stress management. So sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/CISM. That'll have a link in there to all of the documents that Perry and Keith and Roland Schmidt, they've sent me as part of what they've established there in their respective states or areas. So, Bubba, other thoughts?
Nope. I'm going to be giving a talk on this at our Sports Medicine Update this June, and again at our SWATA district meeting in July. And then hopefully from there, we will have some more information about a local / state / district wide CISM at that point. CISM teams at that point.
So the Sports Medicine Update Bubba was just talking about is one of my favorite conferences that I go to, which I'll also be broadcasting live. I'm sure Bubba will be, again, part of several of the interviews, as he's pretty good at that. I have a link to that in the show notes as well. So, again, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/CISM. I've got the link to all the files that they've sent me. I've got the link to Sports Medicine Update. I have some of the links that Perry talked about in here about OATA and ICISF and some of those other things. And then I'll put his email in there, and it'll also be on the website where this post is. So make sure you, again, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/CISM, go to that, get in touch with them and get this moving in your area so that you're not in the same situation that we were May 1st last year, kind of left up in the air after something like this. Again, it was 2 weeks ago, I think, Bill and I received award from GHATS for this, and I still couldn't even talk about what happened. And it's a year removed. I know what happened. I know we did the best that we could, but it's still something that I don't think I won't ever forget it. And I don't know if it'll ever become easier to talk about when I talk about a student losing a life. So having somebody that's trained to come in, step in, and be right beside you, it's very important to me. And please help us move this forward wherever you are. So
For those of you in Texas, don't inundate Perry's email. I've been talking with him, and we will keep you updated in our various events. So I'm not saying don't go look into doing this, but let's try to keep it small and easy, and we can disseminate the information at meetings and through this sports medicine broadcast. And that way we kind of are all on the same page at that point and not going off in 20 different directions or 40 different directions, trying to do the same thing.
And then on the very last note, if you know anybody that's dealing with this, whether it's a policeman, a fireman, an athletic trainer, a nurse, just reach out and just text them, email them, call them, say, hey, I'm thinking about you. I care about you. Is there anything that you would like? Just that much makes a huge difference. So on that note, that is going to be a wrap. I'm sorry we lost Perry for the end of it, but Jeremy Jackson, Bubba Wilson, Perry Dennehy, and then my students that were here earlier for the sports medicine broadcast, that is a wrap.